Hello, Gooners, and welcome to Gooner Pavilion. This is our Arsenal versus Bournemouth preview. And listen, we've had a very, very good Christmas, from Arsenal. Taking care of business, won games, and some have been rough, some have been beautiful. We've had the beauty, we've had the beast, we've had all sorts, and we've had a good start to the new year. What a great performance against Aston Villa. It was time for someone to get that, and definitely Arsenal responded with a very, very convincing win, a statement win. Is what I said in my last breakdown of that game. Do check that out on Gooner Pavilion channel. And don't also forget to like and subscribe on the channel as well, and share this with as many Arsenal fans, as possible as we're building this into 2026. A happy new year to every one of you. But hey, 2026 is going to be better. It's going to be beautiful. We've got lots of things that we're planning for the channel as well. I am going to be doing a nice special end of year recap of Arsenal, something that very different to what you probably see in other channels as well. So look out for that. It's going to take a little bit of time, to kind of edit that as well. So, I don't have a big budget. So it's probably going to take me some time to edit that. But trust me, it's going to be worth the wait. It's going to look at Arsenal 2025 from the start of the year to the end of the year, the highs, the lows, and everything, and why you need to believe in 2026 going forward. But today we're going to talk about the Bournemouth game, and I've done the research. I've looked at Bournemouth, and I'm going to break down exactly what this game is going to look like, because they're one of those games where they're not your glamorous games, not headline grabbing games, and it's just a ground that has been notoriously difficult for Arsenal in recent times. I would say that in recent times, I think we've had red cards, in that ground, and the crowd is a compact stadium. The crowd is on top of you. They're aggressive, and this is the type of game that you win as a title-winning team. So we're going to break that down, and we're going to do it properly, right? So let's get into it. Our Arsenal preview, Arsenal versus Bournemouth. Okay, guys, before we talk tactics, we need context, right? And remember, I've been talking about this in all the videos, and go and check what Arsenal needs to win the league, the road to 90 points. And I'm going to frame this game exactly there. So if you look at the graphics, it's probably going to be showing right now. So Arsenal now have 45 points from 19 games. We are officially at the halfway point of the season. And as we've said all year, right, the title isn't going to be won in highlight games. It's going to be won in buckets. So Arsenal are going to be winning games in buckets. And this time around, we looked at the swing bucket, which was the Aston Villa game. Now we're going to look at the manageable games bucket. And this is the most dangerous bucket, of the season for Arsenal. And here's why. Here's the list. Got Everton away, Leeds away, Nottingham Forest away, Brentford away, Wolves away, West Ham away, Bournemouth away, and Newcastle at home. Those are 9 games. We've already ticked Everton away, so we are on track. But as you can see, a lot of these games are away games, and away from home. So that's why this Bournemouth away isn't just another fixture, guys. Remember, we've got to put the end goal in mind. The end goal is about how Arsenal win the Premier League. So we're gonna stack these wins game by game. And Bournemouth away keeps us on track. We lose focus here, and then suddenly the margin disappears. And I've been saying that, but we win here, and we're perfectly on track for that 90 points. Okay, so let's look at what Bournemouth actually are. Not what the table says, what they actually are. Now, you look at Bournemouth and you might think they're a mid-table team, at least according to the table. The pressing team, they look a little bit chaotic, but that's only half of the story, guys. Under Andoni Iraola, Bournemouth are built on organized disruption. And here's what they do well. They've got one of the highest presses in the league, and they're their passes per defensive actions are below 10 in most matches. And among the ball winners across every zone, they are about the best. So that means that Bournemouth try and set traps for you to win the ball high up in the pitch. And they deliberately turn games into second ball battles. You're probably going to hear me talk about that a lot. It's something that is, teams have really honed on, this season. A lot of the teams are using that, what they do when it comes to second balls to really leverage them, especially when they play against the top teams. And Bournemouth, are quite up there in terms of that. They want you to be all around your pitch. And the most important part is that when that press works, Bournemouth can beat anyone. And when it doesn't, they unravel. And we're going to look at, a couple of examples. So the press trap, for Bournemouth, this is where the game is really decided. And if you remember the game that they played against Man City, they really Man City struggled with Bournemouth a little bit in there. And Bournemouth play with a very high defensive line. The reason why they do that is because they like to try and compress, that middle of the pack to really organize their pressing. So they really like to try and press. They have the likes of Evan Nilsson when he plays, David Brooks when he plays as well, and Alex Scott. Those guys are very, very critical, to their press. But here's the thing: they swarm that first pass and they dare you to play through the team. But the flaw in that system is that once you bypass the press, there's a huge gap between the midfield and defense, and that gap is that zone 14. You probably hear a lot of people talk about zone 14, and zone 14 is that space just by the edge, of the penalty box, and anywhere kind of around that. And Arsenal have had some joy, scoring goals from there. Look at the goal that Trossard scored, the goal from Odegaard, as well, just to give you a visual of what that zone 14 is. And Bournemouth are statistically weak there because they have the worst dual success rate in the league, according to Opta, about 47%. And their centre backs, get exposed when they are forced to defend space. And so the defensive shape really collapses once that first line is beaten. And this is why elite teams, punish them, not by going around them, but by going through them and then over them. And what Man City showed in that game was, Bournemouth gave City problems. We've talked about it. But here's what City did differently. They didn't panic, under the press. They just went over it. And if you notice, Haaland's 2 goals were balls over the top. One vertical pass, one running behind, and that centre back isolated. Gyökeres is typically a target for most teams. He's very, very vulnerable, in that back line. Senesi is also decent, but these are defenders that can actually get guts. And that's how Erling Haaland punish them. Now, can Arsenal do the exact same thing? This is the kind of game that you would want informed Victor Gyökeres to be running onto balls like that and slotting them into the back of the net. It remains to be seen whether Arsenal can make those killer passes to Victor Gyökeres. And for me, this is one way, for Arsenal to beat Bournemouth. But there is one Bournemouth player, who actually changes the games for them, and everybody knows this. He's on the lips of everyone. January is going to be significant for Bournemouth because, if I'm Andoni Iraola, I would be very, very disappointed to see one of my best players go. And yes, and we're talking about Antoine Semenyo, and there were, talks about potentially Arsenal being interested in him, but I just can't see that, right now, not anymore. I think if this was the summer, maybe there would have been strong considerations. But don't forget, Leandro Trossard only signed an improved contract, not an extended contract. So he still only has 1 year, after his contract at the end of the season. So And that left hand side is exactly where Anton Semenyo plays. And I think that Man City are actually thinking far ahead. I don't think they need him right now this season, because Doku has been in great form, and I think he's coming back. As well. He's been away from from the team based on injury, but I think he's coming. But I think Man City are right now are doing this because they know that if they don't do it in January, Arsenal will go ahead and do that. I don't think Arsenal have got the PSR space to be able to do that. And so I think yes, it would have been nice to get Semenyo, but I don't think that's going to happen. But Semenyo is very, very key for Bournemouth. They like to isolate him against fullbacks very early on, especially in the first couple of minutes, 15-20 minutes. He scored 9 league goals for Bournemouth, and he's very elite in transition. He's physical, he's direct, he's relentless, and he's the main outlet for Bournemouth when it comes to punishing teams. He loves to force teams backwards, and hey, he's one of those guys that can go left, go right. So whoever's going to be playing at that right back position is going to have a job on his hands. And we're going to talk about Arsenal's selection for this game, because I think that there are decisions for Mikel Arteta to make in order to win the war, so to speak, not just the battle. And that actually leads me nicely to talking about Arsenal's lineup for this game, the team selection, the dilemma that Mikel Arteta has. And as Arsenal fans, we've been crying for this unbelievable position that we're in. You only need to look at the bench that we had against Aston Villa. It was Havertz, it was Jesus, it was Eze, it was Martinelli, it was Norgard. Even Waneri couldn't even get into the bench. Ben White was also on that bench. This is Man City bench, a couple of years ago. And Arsenal have taken 5 years to get themselves in a position whereby they can bring players off the bench without a drop in performance. And the key thing is bring players off the bench. And it's probably one of the my criticism about Mikel Arteta in terms of the way that he trusts players, especially when we get into this time of the season. We cried out, for Saka to get some rest. And finally, we've got a player who can actually do that. Noni Madueke, he hasn't seen the pitch in about 2 or 3 games. So you gotta say to yourself, what is going on there? You need to trust the squad, because listen, I know that we've got 19 games to the end of the Premier League, and everything is going to feel like there's so much pressure. The games are coming thick and fast. After this game, next week on Thursday, we play Liverpool, which is a big one. And you know what that build-up is going to be. Liverpool win that game, and all of a sudden, they're back in the title race. Because that's what, happens with every game when we play a team in that top half. Everyone is in the title race when they're playing Arsenal. So you might think that we play this game on Saturday, so there's enough time to rest for that Liverpool game. But, here's what I would say. I would say trust the squad that you have, trust the team that you have. And, I'll talk about the lineup that I would potentially want to go with. I don't know if it's the one that Mikel Arteta will go in, but it'll be the one that I will certainly go in, because what you want to do is claw back some minutes for a lot of these players that are probably hitting that red zone, as it were. Lots of people were talking about Saka and, how he was feeling a little bit tired. Is there a bit of a deja vu feeling, about Saka, with this one? And we're entering into the business part of the season. Everything is in front of us. So, guys, we need to be, careful. Look, hey, I've done a little bit of a rant there, but let's get back to our preview. Now, what we've learned from that Aston Villa game is the importance of Saliba and Gabriel partnering together. That really brings instant authority, for Arsenal. The backline looks calmer, more vocal, more assured. But questions remain, right? As I've just talked about it, Timber didn't look particularly fit in that game. Do you want to risk him in this game against Bournemouth? White is back on the bench. White has shown his fragility as well. Is he ready for 90 minutes? It's another question that you've got to ask. In Capia left back, he was functional, not expansive. For me, this feels like a Miles Lewis Kelly game. Honestly, I would play Miles Lewis Kelly in this game as left back. And Capia, get a bit of a rest. We're going to need you against Liverpool. I'll probably say Liverpool, is a game that you put Capia back into the squad. But this game, Miles Lewis Kelly should start at the left back position. Midfield wise, no need to risk Rice. I think, you've got any doubt about Rice, you keep him for that Liverpool game. It would be a shame to try and force Rice into this game and then we lose him in the Liverpool game, because Liverpool have got better players in that midfield than what we saw against Aston Villa. So I would not risk Rice, for this game. Norgard comes in, for me. I want Norgard to play in this game. And look, this game is going to be about winning second balls and managing chaos, like I've said. And for me, Norgard is going to be perfect to do that. And then up front, there's a temptation, here. The temptation, and I've seen it, lots of channels and people have been talking about, is Gabriel Jesus starting up front. I think this is a game for Victor Gyökeres. Looking at Aston Villa and what I've talked about in terms of their centre back, they struggle with physical duels. Like I said, they don't win the duels a lot. And this is the kind of game that Victor Gyökeres can have a lot of joy in. Balls into the channels. They struggle with that. Just look at the Chelsea game. See the way Esteval, absolutely demolished that right wing side, off the pitch. Isolating their centre backs and full backs will give us joy. So for me, I think Gyökeres should play up front. And just sustaining that occupation, sustaining that penalty box, and occupying, all the defensive players there. Gyökeres fits this game. For me, this is also a fixture where Eze would thrive. I talked about the zone 14 in terms of where, Bournemouth, are susceptible. Remember Tottenham, all Eze's goals came in that area. I think this is a game that will be good for Eze to play. Hey, I understand this, right? Odegaard has been in ridiculous form, and it would feel almost a betrayal to kind of put Odegaard on the bench, in terms of, you would just want to play him until he has form. But hey, don't forget, Odegaard, hasn't really completed 4-5 games in top form this season. So I wouldn't want to risk him. Look, we can play Eze in this game and we can still get a result. Play Madueke on the right, and he can stretch that right hand side, of Bournemouth. And here's one stat, for you. Martinelli averages his highest XG per 90 in away games against high defensive line. Come on, guys. This is his environment. This is the sort of game, to play Martinelli. So listen, my lineup in this game, obviously, Raya in goal, Saliba and Gabriel center back, Miles Lewis Kelly on the left. And then what I would do is I would play Euron Timber on the right, but only for a couple of minutes, right? You're perfectly in the right place to give Ben White 45 minutes for tactical reasons. I'll switch that up and play White. Bring White on a little bit earlier in the game. In the midfield, Zubimendi plays with Odegaard and with Norgard. These two names always get me twisted. Norgard plays in that midfield position with Zubimendi. I thought that Norgard, would be great. And Zubimendi actually gave a blueprint of him playing a little bit higher in that midfield in that Aston Villa game. So, you know what? I would do that with a security, with Norgard playing, not Merino. I don't think this is the kind of game, for Merino to play. I think this is a game that is very perfect for Norgard. So Norgard and Zubimendi in that midfield position. Then I'll have Eze, play in the position. And then you have Martinelli play Martinelli on the left and Noni Madueke on the right and Gyökeres up front. I think this should be the lineup just because we can. We've got the players. And what that does is that it keeps the players fresh, keeps them motivated for that Liverpool game. This is exactly what you want. Now, how do Arsenal win this game? Um, they win it by staying calm in the first 20 minutes, by passing the press. I've already talked about that. Owning that zone 14 in the game, winning second balls, and exploiting set pieces. Set pieces are going to be important. Set piece, ole, ole. Honestly, it's such a strength for Arsenal with Gabriel coming back into the team. I can just see us getting one from a set piece, because Bournemouth have conceded 12 from set pieces. That's the worst in the league. So, hey, who's the best in set pieces right now in the league? Arsenal. So let's not shy away. Let's give all the people something to talk about. So we go in and we strike hard with the set pieces. But if Arsenal score first in this game, Bournemouth have no plan B. I honestly believe that. So I think that with everything, with the rotation, with the game plan, with where you can attack Bournemouth, for me, even though I don't think this would be pretty, because I think Bournemouth are playing at home, they do have a good defensive record at home, which does sound like a little bit of a contradiction, right? Considering how vulnerable they are and all of that. But everything depends on Bournemouth's presses. And if you look at their home games, they really attack that first line of the press, and they win a lot of balls from there. So Arsenal have got to be careful with that. We saw Aston Villa, try and do that, to Arsenal, especially when David Raya has the ball and is trying to pass that in back into open play. Aston Villa made sure that that was a very, very nervy action for Raya. And you remember the steal from Konsa on Gyökeres that almost led to a goal. It's going to be very similar with Bournemouth. So it's not going to be pretty, but like I say, this is exactly the type of game that title teams win. So my prediction for this game is Arsenal to score 2 goals in this game. Anton Semenyo is in this game. Can Arsenal live with a clean sheet? It is possible. I think with Saliba and Gabriel back in this game, I think we can do a clean sheet there. So I'm going to go with 2-0. And we're leaning on that brick on brick, another brick being laid to that road to 90. This is a grown-up away game, honestly. It really is. And if Arsenal win this, Arsenal keeps stacking the right bucket. Guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about your predicted 11. Do you agree with the rotation, the amount of people that should be rotated in the squad? Who would you start up front, right? Gyökeres or Jesus? Put that in the comments. And how confident do you feel about the stretch of away games, that we have in that bucket? But guys, once again, thank you all for watching. Subscribing. This channel would be nothing without you guys. So really, really appreciate that. Help us grow this in 2026. And I'll be back, to break down, that game, win, lose, or draw with our 3 ups and 3 downs, as we always do, guys. And don't forget to look for that 2025 recap, guys. I'll see you all. We go again.